Dan, hello, welcome.
Thanks for having me.
Now, this is technically round 2 of podcasting together because last time was on the Omnia Performance podcast, but this time we're going to deep dive in a solo setting, which is going to be fun. So we have something in common, which is that we both grew up in Scotland with lots of opportunity to play lots of different sports at an international level, normally quite averagely, but you are far beyond average in one. So what led you to swimming out of all the sports that you had access to?
I think that the way that I got into it really was my mum was a swimming teacher. I'm of a family of I've got 4 siblings. There was 3 of us at the time when we were all younger, and it was just like something we did as a family, to be honest. And I was never just a one sport child. I did a bunch of other things, like everyone does. You play football, you do rugby, running, whatever it is. Swimming was just one of those sports that I did, and then over time, I liked the competitive element of swimming. I enjoyed being in the water. I never had a fear of the water. I think that was probably the biggest thing that, pushed me down that avenue of just at least exploring swimming as an option. It was never a fear of mine. It was never something I felt uncomfortable doing. And then over time, swimming with my siblings and with my family, and then realizing there was a way that I can touch on my competitive side, which at that age I didn't really know I had, but swimming helped me discover the fact that I like to work hard, I liked to improve myself, and I liked to go head to head with people. I think that that's something that I was always quite strongly focused on, was not so much like the desire to win, but just seeing how I got on in a competitive element. I always liked that, but at the same time, it was just down to the hard work. You're similar. Like, you like working hard. I like breaking a sweat. I like having a high heart rate. I like being sore in the gym. Like some people will be like, that's just a bit bonkers. It's like, why do you, like, I'm swimming a channel and people are like, well, why would you want to do that? And it's like, well, I like to challenge myself. I like things to be hard. I like the uncomfortable. And I think that is something I'm very thankful for in swimming. But yeah, it was a family affair. And then I took it pretty seriously in the end.
What do you think it was about the solo side of it versus the team sports environment? Because I only discovered how much I enjoyed self-competitiveness as a result of being told, you've had too many concussions, you can't play rugby anymore.
Yeah.
And I had that team sport element taken away from me. So did you feel you were missing anything by committing to swimming? Or did you feel that you had that with your family dynamic in some ways?
Yeah, it's an interesting one because, there's black and white team sports like rugby, for example, where like everything you're doing is around the team. And then in swimming, there's moments of it being a team environment and there's moments of it being an individual focused. When it comes to performance, like you're stood behind the blocks, you're diving in, like you're on your own then. But everything in the lead up to that is actually, in my eyes, in a team environment, especially where I was training. So I trained at the University of Florida in America. They are all about the team. They are a massive team culture, massive team environment. So I feel like it did get that kind of team sport element. But at the end of the day, it was, me swimming on my own, behind the blocks in that one lane. Now when I swim, it is a lot more kind of individual because I'm not part of a team anymore. So I kind of have that contrast now. But I did actually look at swimming as a team sport and as a team, because I was training 30 hours a week and I was going to like 10 competitions a year. So the vast majority of the time spent in the pool was with teammates, was with my coaches, with my support staff. So I do actually feel like I got the best of both worlds in that aspect.
That's the main reason you were drawn to America rather than the UK for university or college, wasn't it? Rather essentially the team dynamic, the facilities and everything they offered. Well, and one individual specifically at the University of Florida was why you went there rather than chose to stay in the UK for your training.
Yeah, I think that it was a slight cultural difference. I think that the way that I saw swimmers training and competing in America was very different than when over here in the UK. And I think that's maybe changed over the years. There's some fantastic opportunities to stay at home locally. But I was just intrigued by what was happening over in the States with, especially at the University of Florida, like Ryan Lochte, and since then there's been other multiple Olympic champions that have come through that program. And I was just like, what are they doing differently? what can I go and learn from them? Because I don't think people play it a little bit too safe, and they just stick to, where everyone else goes here in the UK. And I think that there's a lot of, America are the number one swimming nation in the world, and they almost always have been. There's tougher competitors now. We're one of them, but they've done something right for a very long time. And I was like, let's go try that out. Let's go see what that is. Like, even just the way that the sport and the university programs are set up there, they've got so much more money coming in because they're selling out 70,000, 80,000 seats at a football stadium every single weekend.
Yeah, it's mad.
And a large chunk of that is going back into the athletic department. So I'm like, hold on a minute. Like, it's a business. It's a very successful and high net worth business. And it, you're getting, as an athlete, swimming wasn't making money, but we were getting, subsidized from other places. So we were getting the best coaches, the best nutrition, the best support out there. And it was just like, it was all there on a platter, and you make it what you can make it. And I went out there and I grasped it. And I think it was a good decision in the end.
It's wild to me how disparate the US collegiate system is versus the rest of the world. Because, I did my last taper session before the World Championships powerlifting in Las Vegas in 2015. Went to the University of Las Vegas gym, which was probably at the time the best equipped facility I've ever been in my life, and is better than anything that currently exists in the UK. And that was bog standard across the whole nation. So it doesn't surprise me that you thrived in that environment, but it was a big step. You'd never even been to the US before, had you?
No, never been. Like, most college or high school athletes in the US especially will go on like a recruiting trip. So they'll go to a few different options, and they'll meet the coaches, they'll see the campus, they'll see the facilities, and they'll make a decision. My decision was made as soon as I found out Ryan Lochte trained there, who was the world record holder and the reigning Olympic champion. As soon as I found out he trained there, I was like, I'm going there and no one can stop me, essentially. And it wasn't that simple to get there, but that's essentially, my mind was made up. And I think that it's probably the first time like I really just had to back myself and being like, if you're doing this, you need to go and make a success. It was like I think I always knew it was going to work out because I didn't really have an option to go over there and it just be, like, oh, we tried. But like, if I was moving my whole life over there without any kind of, prior experience of what it was going to be like, I knew I was going to have to make it worthwhile. And I think that it was certainly a decision I'm pretty chuffed with.
Mindset going over.
Yeah.
You obviously picked out University of Florida because Ryan Lochte was there. He was number one in your spot, and you were going directly for him. Can't do anything but respect that as an attitude.
Naivety.
But what was your end game at that point in your head? Was it just to improve? Was it Commonwealth Games? Was it, I am not going to be satisfied until I compete in the Olympics? How did you map out what was to come next? Or were you just going one step at a time?
Essentially, I was just going one step at a time, but you kind of know what those steps look like when you're at that point. Like, if you were to ask me what my mindset was when I was like 15, it was just let's see how good I can be. And then, from a teenager, from 17, 18, when I made that decision to go over to the States, I kind of knew that there was a potential for, as good as I can be, to be one of the best, like to be Commonwealth, world champion, Olympic level. Now, those are certainly, there's tiers to those levels themselves, but I was like, right, once I've made that switch to like, I think I know how good I can be, let's really pursue it. I knew that it was going to be like make the Olympics, like that was going to be the goal. And I think that was just, I would have been happy with just making the Olympics. But I come from a sporting country, Great Britain, that is very successful. So if you're going to make the Olympics, you're potentially going to make the final, because it's very tough to make the Olympics for Team GB because we're such a great swimming nation, especially in the last kind of 12 years. So I knew that if I was making the Olympics, I wasn't just going to make it and get a heat swim and then that be done. I was going to make the final. If you're in the final, you're in for a chance. So I knew that if I could make the Olympics, I could be, potentially stood on the podium, because that's just the way that the grassroots sport has been in swimming in the UK. So like you kind of figure out as you go along one step at a time what those next steps are going to look like. And I think I had a really nice journey, a really nice progression, because my first major international meet was the Commonwealth Games. And then from there, it was the World Championships. And then from there, it was the Olympics. So like, just because of the timeline of those years, 2014, 2015, 2016, I had a lovely natural progression from like Common Games being, a big meet, but there's a couple of superstars missing from those competitions. World Championships, everyone's there. The pressure is pretty similar. You get a taste of what it's like to be on the top of the international stage. And then from there, it's the Olympics, which just has that special extra spark. It's only every 4 years. There's obviously a lot more pressure that goes into it. So I think I got quite lucky with just the timing of how I progressed through the sport.
How did your tolerance for the pressure in 2014 versus, Commonwealth Games, World Championships, Olympics, how did your tolerance for pressure develop throughout those? Were there certain things that you employed as tactics to deal with things better, or did you just have total confidence in your ability and the work done to get it done?
Yeah. I again, like following that natural progression from the level of competitions I was being exposed to, my ability to handle the pressure also just naturally got better. But it was definitely things that I learned, like almost like the way that I was feeling before the Olympic final against like Michael Phelps and Ryan Lochte. The pressure that I was feeling, the nerves that I was feeling wasn't nearly as much as the first time I was ever exposed to any sort of level like that, was probably the Commonwealth Games. So Commonwealth Games was really the turning point, because I knew I was having a good competition. I was like day 2 and I'd qualified first for the 400 medley, which if you'd asked me years ago, I would be like, that's crazy. So I was like, that was the first chance I had the opportunity to like really deliver when real pressure is on. So that took a lot of just like grit and self-belief. I was like, okay, this is the chance to like make it or not make it. And I think that there was genuinely, like, I felt a switch go in the back of my mind. I was lying first, and up until that, I'd had moments where I'd maybe been going into a race quite highly seeded, but never came out on top. And I just, for the first time in my life, thought, well, why not make it you today? Like, this is your opportunity, home crowd. You like, on paper, everything is saying that you should do well in this race. So it's just like, right, let's just back that. Let's just go with that. None of this, like, I'll settle for second, or let's hope I do a good race. It's like, go out there and try and win it. So that just like grit and determination in that moment, I believe, set me up for the rest of it just being a lot easier to handle. So that as the pressure built, I was being more comfortable with it. I was being more experienced with pressure. And it turns out that I really liked the pressure, and I did very well with the pressure, and the pressure liked me. So I embraced it. Like little things, like I used to, get super in the zone and try and completely blank everything out with my headphones on, to the point where I was like, never had my headphones on, embraced the energy, felt the energy in the room. If I could, try and embrace the crowd as well. Because those little things, because when I realized, oh, actually, you do quite well with the pressure, I was like, let the pressure in, let it all in, let the environment kind of take over you in a way and see what you can do. Because there's some people that can rise to the occasion, and there's some people that can really crack under the pressure. So I was one of the ones that rose to the occasion. So once I figured that out, I was like, right, bring it on. I want it louder, I want it bigger, I want the lights brighter.
And Glasgow as entry point, home turf, home crowd, is pretty remarkable. Some may say fate in terms of timing, you being born at the time that you were, the way that everything unfolded. It's pretty wild that you were given that opportunity, but for you to rise to it and come away with an incredible result from the off must have just given you confidence to see it through to...
Yeah, it's funny because when I was like, whenever Glasgow got announced as the games, it always happens maybe like 4 or 8 years ahead. So I was just like a teenager, a little kid at the time, and I was like, damn, like Glasgow, like really, like
that'd
if I make the Commonwealth Games, like I'm going to Glasgow. Like I go to Glasgow all the time.
Yeah.
I want to go to somewhere like Australia or somewhere exotic. And at the same time, I think London was announced for the Olympic Games, which I didn't even end up making. But at the time, I was like, damn, like all these, I didn't think of it at the time. Like, that's actually amazing. That's great. So like as a kid, I was like, I was bummed out about it. But then realizing that like that is a really special moment for me and the entire Team Scotland. So as an athlete to go there, first games, let's call it a home games, even though I'm from Edinburgh, like having the crowd, like I went into that race and 85 to 90% of the crowd wanted me to win. Like that's very special. That doesn't quite often happen. Very rare. So when I realized that, I was like, this is a really, really cool moment. And I went to my second Commie Games in Australia, and it was just as special, but it wasn't Glasgow. It wasn't Glasgow. So yeah, I really felt that was a, I guess luck, the time I was born and the time I did well, and I'm quite thankful for that.
So building from one success into the next, look into your first Olympics, the excitement that went with that, the process that went with that, what changed in that 4-year period? Was it just more of the same work? Were there any things you did differently because the level had gone up a notch? Or was it just more of the same, which is being the best athlete you can be in the best team setting you can be and doing your best to deal with the pressure on the day?
I think it is a bit of that, and just those steady improvements. But 2014 to 2015, when I started to see solid, good results on the world stage, I started to really understand exactly what type of athlete I could be. There's some people that are super specialized in one thing, and their whole goal is like, how good can I be at this one individual race? Maybe it's a sprint, maybe it's a fairly simple race as far as the skills required. Maybe there's some that are a bit more in depth. So for me, I swam 400 medley, which gave me a big diverse training background. I had to do all the strokes. I had to be pretty quick off the start, but also a bit of endurance and just a bit of grit and determination that goes into a race like that across all 4 strokes. So what that allowed me to do is have a few different events potentially that I could be quite good at. And then suddenly that opened the field of, okay, maybe you're not just going to be a 400 medley swimmer and specialize in that and trying to make the Olympic final or win a medal there, but you're also going to be able to go down, so you can do the 200 medley. You could also be pretty good at freestyle, 200 freestyle. Maybe you could be part of the 4x200 freestyle relay. So over those years, I started to understand like where my specialty could be. And what was exciting about that was I thought I could be pretty good across quite a few different events. So suddenly it was like really exciting. It's like, don't just make the Olympics, but like try and qualify and swim several times in several different events. So it became really exciting. It meant that like my training and the domestic competitions I was doing could be, we could play around with it quite a lot. And I'm always someone that I need to be stimulated with things that are new to me. So I thought it was always going to be too boring if I was just going to go for the one event. Say it was like 100-meter front crawl there and back for freestyle like that. Yeah, I've got a lot of respect for people that can be so good at that. But for me, I want to be good at a few different things. So it was just kind of experimenting different ways to improve, different ways to test myself. So something like off events, maybe something that I'm not going to do at the Olympics, but it's going to help me from a training and a racing point of view. So just trying to be as versatile as I could be, as experienced as I could be in different disciplines, different environments, different speeds, finding out what my weaknesses were, because I had them, and finding out what my strengths were and using them and amplifying them. That was really it. So just understanding what type of racer I was, what type of trainer I was, where my best events were, where my off events were, and just trying to, shape that into, hopefully a great 2016 and great Olympic Games.
How many hours a week were you in the pool?
In the pool, like probably 20, just over 20. And then you throw in gym sessions, conditioning sessions. It's like 30 hour week of like in-person training. And then there's like this, when I think about like what my training load actually was, you got to take into account like, good half an hour before and after the session, you're either priming yourself, you get in the zone, you're recovering. So that's an extra hour on top. There's then also like, if I'm training, when I was a full-time athlete, as you run a business now as well. So it's probably even harder, but like if you got a double, you're training in the morning, 5 till 7, you're training again at the evening. Those hours in between, it's very hard to switch off. So it's actually the full day. You're either physically recovering, you're mentally recovering to try and refocus again to get back in the pool or back in the gym that afternoon. So it's like, it's the whole day. It's a full time. It's 24/7, especially if you want to be really, really good. Like when I was in my like sweet spot, I remember like when I was so hungry for that success, it was genuinely the first thing I thought about when I woke up and the last thing I thought about when I went to bed. And it maybe wasn't always like that. I was able to just, control my emotions and my determination at different times of the day and different times of the year. But, as someone that was so hungry, it was like a full-time 24/7 is really all I was maybe subconsciously thinking about, not always consciously thinking about, but it is, you've got your training load and you've got all those other hours that it's still on your mind. It's still so passionate for you.
But that hunger got you to the pinnacle, arguably. Well, yeah. Definitively. I don't know in swimming definition terms. World Championships or Olympics. Olympics is higher.
Yeah, Olympics is definitely, it's higher just because it's special. It's more like it's every 4 years. World Champs every 2 years. So it's like the chance to go to the Olympics is less. Like You've got less chances. So that's top.
So lining up next to Ryan Lochte, the man that you decided to go after many, many years before, and Michael Phelps, who everybody listening will have heard of.
Yeah.
And we can probably all picture that wingspan photo with every single medal in the world hanging off it.
You know the guy.
How did you, obviously getting through the heats to that point, had you conditioned yourself to just deal with that as this is the job? Or did that, the scale of the event, the challenge of the event, the prowess of the individuals that you were, I guess, privileged to be, and had worked very hard to be floating beside, stood beside, whatever the phrase is. What was that feeling like in that moment? Was it purely professional or did it feel different?
I'm very good at switching between professional and just like emotionally that this is really cool. And I think that, I've obviously trained with Ryan for years. I knew him very well. He was a friend of mine. Phelps was a competitor I'd kind of crossed paths with a few times, but it was still very new to me. So to be stood in the call room before that final and saying, that's the world record holder, like that's Michael Phelps. Like, of course, like little kid in me is going to be like, this is really cool. Like this is a really special moment, but at the same time, like you are here to do a job. So I gave myself like a little split second here and there to like just appreciate what's about to happen. And I'm rubbing shoulders with like genuinely my idols, the best who have ever done it. Like that, you can't just blank that out. You got to just give yourself a second to be like, this is really cool. Little pat on the back, but like you still got stuff to do. And like there was never an intimidation or anything. Like, I knew on paper, Phelps probably had a better chance of beating me than I did of him. And I was very aware of that, but it didn't mean that, I say I love racing, I love competing, but when you are doing a swimming race, like it's actually, you're just executing your plan. If the people around you can help elevate that plan, if you're racing eyeball to eyeball, the last 15 meters, like that's great. But at the end of the day, like if you had the blinkers on, it shouldn't matter who's next to you and who's not. Like you're doing your race plan, you're counting your strokes, you're putting in the right effort, different parts.
You can't draft. You can't. There's none of that, is there?
Like that. So it doesn't actually matter who you're racing. It might, make an impact on your race, on the pressure, the nerves, but it shouldn't matter if you're racing your neighbor, if you're racing Michael Phelps. Like you're there to swim in your lane. No one else is in there. You execute your race plan. So at the end of the day, didn't care that I was racing Phelps, but also at the end of the day, pretty cool that I was racing Phelps. So
how did your race go?
Not as well as his. He's he's got an undefeated record against me, let's say. So yeah, I've never managed to pip him in any way, but it was I think it's also very difficult from like a performance point of view. Like you mentioned swimming, I got to the pinnacle of swimming, but swimming is also a pinnacle sport, whereas like there's one moment in the year essentially where everything needs to happen correctly. And it's crazy that we can even condition our bodies to like over a 12 or over a 4-year period, let's just say, my race lasts less than 2 minutes, sorry. So it's like, how can I get everything to just go perfectly well for those 2 minutes? It's like, it's crazy the fact that can be the best performance I ever do. So it's very hard to make that the best performance you can ever do. It's like you look at, a lot of the world records in swimming, especially the sprint stuff, the 50 freestyle, none of them are broken in the Olympic final. None of them. They'll be at some domestic competition, maybe the Olympic trials where there's a bit of pressure, but it's not the end of the world if you don't break the world record. So it's very hard to get it perfectly right, really, when it matters. And I think that's where the greats become great, is that they, like Sir Michael Phelps, he can break those world records in the Olympic final. There's rising to the occasion, and then there's going above and beyond and making it the most special race you've ever had. Like looking back at the Commonwealth Games, that was probably my best ever performance. But the pressure was high, but it wasn't make or break. It wasn't like, if I don't win, I'm a failure. It was like, so I could kind of go in there and like, let's see what happens, but also knowing I could do well. So yeah, the race did go. I was very happy with the race. It wasn't my best race. It wasn't my best time, but I got to come away with that feeling proud and feeling like I left it all in the pool.
And ultimately you finished your career with, correct me if I'm wrong, gold medal Commonwealth.
Yeah.
Silver in medley at the Olympics, and bronze individual at the Olympics.
Not bronze individual.
Not bronze individual. No.
So Olympic silver, World Championship gold, Commonwealth gold. Those are like my 3 highlights. There's a couple of other ones spread out there, but
okay. So the satisfaction you get from going back to the individual versus team performance side of things.
Yeah.
satisfaction of an individual event going well versus a relay event going well? How do they compare?
It's tough. It's different because I'm lucky that I've had good individuals and great relays. So like relays, Olympic medal, individual Commonwealth gold, relays, world championship gold medal individually, like coming fourth or, getting up there by the podium. Like they're both, I think it's obviously the individual is more admirable. It's more like that was really, really special. The relays I loved because you're doing it with three of your probably like really good friends, like you guys usually, you'll know each other, you've raced with each other for years, you'll train with each other most likely. So I think that there's a special element to that relay, knowing that it's like, right, my friends versus your friends. It's like if you've got a good crew with you, like they make up your weaknesses, you make up their weaknesses, and it's just like balanced out who's got the overall best team. I think that's a really special element, a really special way to look at it. But obviously the individual, the individual success, individual races is, I think it's just harder. It's harder to do, like, especially when, for me as a Team GB swimmer, like we're pretty good, so I know that my other three teammates are world class. There's been times where, maybe there'll be like one superstar on a team and there'll be three like kind of mediocre guys. Like I knew that I was part of a team that were just completely all-rounded. We are all world-class athletes and we're all fantastic racers. So it was really special to be just within that company, and I now see it now. The relay team that I was a part of at the Olympics has now gone above and beyond. That they're now looking to break the world record this summer, and last in the Tokyo Olympics, they won the gold medal. So it's progressed. So I was part of that, early progression from, not just the Team GB relay team, like making the final or maybe scraping a medal. Like we won a silver, then they won a gold. Now they're looking to smash the world record. So I was part of a really nice kind of journey for Team GB in that, in the relays, but also I had my own individual success as well. So I think that my input and like the legacy has been different. For me, I've got that individual success, which I'll always be proud of. I've also got, I was one of the first to really set the Team GB 4x2 relay on this projection that they're on. Like I was one of the early boys, which is really special.
Very cool. Yeah. Very cool. When did you wake up one morning and think, I think I'm done? What was the process of you exiting what had been such a big part of your life for so long?
Yeah, I didn't wake up one morning and think I'm done, but I did wake up one morning and think, this doesn't feel the same. And it was basically right after the Olympics as well, which was just bizarre. You'd think that, like just come off an amazing Olympic debut, like what's next? You want more. And I was like, I don't know if I do. I think there's this gut feeling that I didn't know. I was very confused on how I should feel after that. Because I took like 3-4 weeks off after Olympics, like everyone does. And you get back to the pool, and every season I'd got back to that pool that first week, and I'd been so determined to be like, right, let's smash this season. Let's get even faster. Let's do even better. And for the first time, I like got to the first session of that season, like off season. I was like, I don't know if I have that hunger. And I like tried to force it, and I tried to figure things out. And I think in the back of my mind, it was maybe like, you need to maybe decide kind of what you're doing here. And I pushed on. I ended up pushing on for another 18 months. Or maybe just over that. But I knew that the goals, I was exiting the sport. And I was happy with that because I knew that I was leaving on my terms. So I wasn't leaving really through performance. I wasn't leaving through injury. I wasn't leaving because I had to, and someone said, like, you're done, you're cut from the team. It doesn't really happen like that in swimming. So I knew that if this was my exit plan, then this was my exit plan. And I felt very happy with that. It was a tough decision to do. And I was like young enough for physically, I feel so physically fit now. Like I think that, I think swimmers' primes are going to get much, much further as long as they're okay up here and they're still hungry for it. But I think that, there was just a bit of a switch after the Olympics thinking I'm really, really chuffed with what I've done. And I think that maybe there's more for me to explore. like just generally in life, I don't know. It was just didn't quite have that drive, and it made the decision quite easy. I was like, let's just try and tick off a few more boxes. What you want to do in swimming, go to your second Commonwealth Games, maybe be more of a leader. You're now a senior swimmer. Like, enjoy those moments and not doing things for the first time. Try and go second round through with the Commonwealth Games and kind of just see if you can just squeeze out a little bit more of the sport. And I really enjoyed myself those last 2 years.
You sound completely content with everything you achieved in the sport. Yeah. And we'll come on to what you've started picking back up again recently, which is in the sport and in a sort of more fun, creative, modern, self-serving way, which is great.
Yeah.
But your competitively measured swimming career, it's quite rare to leave feeling like you've ticked all the boxes you wanted to tick, isn't it? Yeah. I mean, your peers, other athletes you've spoken to, why do you think, or what do you think you did over those years, or how did you consider things to be in the position to be able to walk away on your terms, content and happy, and not feeling that you've left anything on the table, or there was a little bit more, if I'd done this and done this and done this, maybe I could have got this at that, or you do want to do another Olympic Games and maybe get for a podium there, and all these questions that circle. When we've spoken before, and even just hearing that now, it doesn't sound like it was a huge part of what you were thinking.
No, I think that I've seen it a lot, and you see it all the time where, you know, individuals are chasing these goals, and unfortunately, because of the way sport is, they might not ever get to that goal, but they're so hungry to do it. So say 1 year you just miss out, right? Next year I'm going to get it. And then you just miss out again, and then you don't get it. And then maybe you get slightly closer to winning that gold medal or breaking that record or getting that time, whatever your goal is. If it's a hard goal and you don't quite get it, you can just get lost in it, and you can just, you know, you can then walk away. And it's not all about the materialistic goals, of course, but that does drive us as athletes. It's hitting these numbers, getting that result. I think that what helped me was, I think I mentioned it earlier, like when I was 15, the goal was be as good as you can be, see how good that is, you know? So it was an open-ended goal. You know, I could have made the Commonwealth Games and that'd be it. And I'd be like, I'm there. That was the level I could get to. Luckily for me, it was a few steps above that. It was, you know, win an Olympic medal. It was racing against Michael Phelps. It was like, I got that. So I was like, right. Is there a level higher than that? Yeah, of course there is. I could have broken a world record. I could have got an Olympic gold medal, but I was happy with the result. I was satisfied. And like, when I hear myself say that, it's not really like, because I'm a competitor. I like fighting. I like, you know, really pushing myself. So I never like to just settle, but I think that there was just something inside me that was like, you're good, man. You're good. You can go if you want. Like, you're, you know, time's up there if you want it to be. So I just felt very lucky that that was an option for me, because some people get lost in it. Some people get cut. Some people just never get that result. I think that I was young enough and I was happy enough with what I'd done that I could just walk away and have a really nice relationship with sport. And I think that at the time when I stopped, I didn't swim, I didn't touch a pool, I didn't think about swimming, and I almost despised the thought of it. But I think that because the way that I left sport, I now have this appreciation for sport in swimming specifically in a completely different way. So we can get into it, but I am swimming a lot more often than I thought we'd ever do. When I first stopped, I'm like, that was it. I'll never own a pair of goggles again. Now look at me, I'm still doing stuff in the sport. But I think that's because my exit was healthy for me. Mentally, I left on my terms. I was satisfied. I was blessed that I did very well within the sport. But now I can go and I can teach, or I can swim myself and still really enjoy it, you know, with completely different goals in mind. But I think that there's some people that I know that were chasing goals that maybe got some of them, but not all of them. But now swimming is just a complete thing in the past, and they can't even touch a pool. Whereas I've now got a healthy relationship with the sport because of the way that I left it.
The thing about it as well that always boggles my mind is that wherever you are in the world, you're always staring at pool tiles.
Yeah. They can't
which means that a lot of swimmers I've spoken to, a lot of them work really hard. I mean, I'm sure you'll know hundreds of them that work really, really hard to get to 16 and 173 days, wake up one morning and think, fuck this, I never want to swim ever again. Because it's just like, it's such a on or an off switch whereby if you can't tolerate another pool tile, I can imagine it's tough. So it's amazing that you managed to put together the career that you did and leave with content a content mindset on it, because that's massive, and I can imagine quite rare.
I had to find excitement in sport in swimming, because as you said, it's like it's a lot of hours, as we've already spoken about, and you're staring at the pool and all you can hear is bubbles going past your ears, and then you stop every however many lengths and you get a quick 30-second chat to your mate or your coach, and then you push off again, and you just do that for 2 hours, and like that isn't the most exciting thing to do. Like, no. I'll tell you that as someone that did it for 15, 20 years, it's not that exciting. So my excitement was, right, make it competitive, like swim fast, swim tough, like try and, go to the top level of it. That was where I found my excitement. Like going for a swim for 30 hours a week there's a lot more I'd like to do in my life than that. I think that was a realization as well. I was like, now when I go swimming, it's therapeutic in a way. It's my place to escape things. So I appreciate just that time with the pool tiles, but I was doing it so often that I was almost like kind of over this now. Let's go and see the world. Let's go even just swim outside. If we're still swimming, like now I'm swimming outdoors a lot. And like even that's it's more stimulating. So yeah, I think I appreciated that it was not the be all and end all.
So just before we discuss how you transition to civilian life, shall we say?
Yeah.
Mainly because I had a really positive 100-meter effort last night, followed by 9 disappointing 100-meter efforts in the pool.
That's how it goes sometimes.
That is how it goes. It's how it goes all the time for me at the moment. But I'm only really swimming at the moment, so I can enjoy swimming in Mallorca and stuff that I've got coming up. Not because I've got anything specific coming up. But your best ever times, just focus on freestyle. Because with Ironman being so popular, people aren't doing as much breaststroke outside of a swimming setting. So PBs, go.
Right. So 100 freestyle. Long course like at the Commonwealth pool, 50-meter pool, is like 49 seconds, 49.1.
It's disgusting.
200 freestyle, like 1:46, 1 minute 46. And then above that, like 400, 3:46. I didn't really go anything above that. And like, freestyle was one of the strokes I could do quite well, but my specialty was medley. So like 400 medley was like 4:11. Wow. So the Commonwealth Games record for like 8 years, which was mad. And then the 200 was like 1:57. But what's crazy, those times might sound really fast to you now, and I'm proud of them, but they're nothing now. Like,
really?
Swimming just keeps getting faster, which I cannot understand, because there was a whole era of like super suits where they were wearing these like shark skin, and it was too much an advantage, and they had.
Was it Speedo or Adidas?
It was a few different brands that were all coming out with these like supersonic suits, but people were like, this is not fair, like it's too much an advantage now, because back in the day Mark Spitz was racing with a mustache and a pair of goggles. Like, we can't just be getting faster because the technology is helping us. I do appreciate technology progressing sport, but at the end of the day, it's like who can be the fastest swimmer, not who can be in the fastest car, kind of thing.
Yeah.
So all these records got broken in 2009 at the World Championships, like almost every single record, and since then there's only now like 2 that are still standing, and people were like, they'll never get broken. So now we can't wear those suits. We wear just more of a traditional racing costume, but almost all the records have now been rebroken. So it's like, how are people still getting faster? So my times sound impressive. I wouldn't be making the team anymore, which is crazy, which makes my decision to be done very easy, because like I couldn't actually make a comeback. It'd be physically impossible.
What's the 100-meter freestyle world record?
100-meter freestyle world record is 46.7, which is fast, and there's a lot of people around. It's not like there's one guy. It's like there's, I can't wait to watch the Olympics this summer, because it's swimming specifically. I'm not too sure about other sports, but like swimming right now, it's hot. Like back in the day, like we mentioned Michael Phelps. If you ask anyone, he's really the only swimmer you really know about. There's now so many, absolute superstars like Michael on the female and the male side that like there's a lot of really good rivalries that I'm looking forward to.
Personality is being encouraged as well, isn't it? Because of the way media and sponsorships is unfolding, it's bringing out the athletes a bit more behind more than just the results. So the Olympic, this might just be me not being in the world or being locked away in here most of the time.
Yeah.
Jamie and I have spoken about this.
Yeah.
But the buzz, press, and general feel of the Olympics coming up doesn't feel like it has done in the past. Does it feel the same for you?
Yeah, I think I maybe agree with you on that. I don't know, maybe if it was like I can't really remember what it was like in 2012. I was out in the States at the time, but the buzz around the London Olympics, I think for the UK was obviously
it was insane,
right?
Yeah, it was insane.
So I think there was almost then like a downtime after that. And I think that now it's like, I'd like the Olympics to still be as special and still be so exciting. But I think that what's great in just like the whole worldwide sporting landscape is there are a lot of other exciting events that people are now into that maybe weren't back into. Like, look at the likes of, let's say, Formula One, for example. Like, how many new Formula One fans are there? So many, right? Especially on like the female side, that people are now into this. So whereas before the Olympics was the spectacle, there's now quite a lot of other things people are super passionate about in different sports that maybe aren't included in the Olympics. So the Olympics is special for me because that was my, kind of event. I was an Olympic swimmer, whereas, rugby players, for example, might not be that bothered about Olympics, but they're more into the Rugby World Cup and the Six Nations. So I think that there is buzz there for the right people. But what is special about the Olympics, it does embrace everybody. Everybody gets behind it. So suddenly I think that Olympics will start and you'll be like, this is
I hope
great.
so. I hope so. Yeah. I've just been a bit confused, like, oh, that's happening soon. I kind of don't feel that.
No, I was also aware of that as well. I was like kind of forgetting that the Olympics was, I think that maybe because the last one was like a COVID Olympics. It was like maybe that kind of killed the buzz.
And we're a year behind or 2 years behind.
Yeah, so it was just a bit weird. So maybe, hopefully, this will then kickstart the Olympic movement again, and it will really add some buzz into it.
I hope so, because the more stories you hear about Olympic funding and how athletes are supported and things, it's if interest dwindles, it does make you wonder what the future is going to look like, which is concerning. Definitely. So, transitioning into non-swimming related existence.
Yeah.
Weird way of putting it, but that's where my head went.
Yeah. No.
You're back up in Scotland now after a few years of pun intended, floating around down south. What was that like for you? What was that like in terms of taking on a new challenge, learning different skills, and kind of, I guess, discovering a new part of yourself, asking questions that you had kind of put on pause for a while? What was that like?
Do you know what? Initially, loved it. Loved the sense of freedom of like, right, let's go try this. Let's go figure out, what real jobs are like, or what, different industries, different mindsets, skill sets. Improve myself in ways I've not been able to ever really touch on before. And getting that kind of like work experience. I loved the initial exploring of that. And then maybe a few years of doing it, still maybe struggling to, I think what I was trying to do was I was trying to replace swimming. And I think that was the wrong thing to do. It was like, right, 12 months, just try and find the new swimming for you. That was never going to be the case. It was more just about trying to find passion in different ways and figuring out what I was good at other than swimming up and down the pool very fast, because I was no longer able to do that. So it's like, right, how can you be good in other ways without it being the replacement of swimming? Because you're never going to replace it. It was part of you. It's still going to be part of you. But what can you be doing now that's making you fulfilled and challenged and happy? So I think there was maybe like a 2-year period where I was loving it. Just everything was new. As I said before, I like new things. But then there was a point where I was like, right, I need to maybe start tapping into what I've learned now about myself. And it's no longer exploring, but it's now like zoning in. Okay, you're good at that. You're passionate about this. Try and fuse those things together. So yeah, it was. It's a tough one. Like that transition from elite sport to just the real world. Like everyone says it. I'll say it as well. It's hard. Most people struggle with it. People go through bad spells, and mentally they're not quite there. And I think that it's a tough one. And like the support out there is there is support out there for athletes that are going from full-time sport into the real world. And I think that, but I don't think we've got it right though, because almost every single athlete that I've ever spoken to has said, yeah, it was actually really tough. Like no one really just transitions super smoothly. And I think that that's because, swimming was my life for 15 years. And from my decision, I decided to close that. I decided to end that. Just because I ended it in a nice way doesn't mean it wasn't going to be difficult and wasn't going to be like hard to let go. But I think that, I needed those few years of just figuring things out and not doing any swimming. I'm always going to be a fit and active guy. I think there was a point where I was like, right, no longer going to be even athletic. And I was just like being a normal guy, like just going to the pub and like not really doing too much. But I am always going to get a lift out of working hard physically. It helps me mentally as well, is what I've realized. Like it's so important that I need to be doing something. So then I started to explore with, running and cycling and lifting weights and getting my fix that way. And now it's kind of got to the point where I now kind of know what I need to be doing to feel fulfilled, to feel happy, to feel driven. And if I can tie that into what I'm doing work-wise, then that's great.
Yep, too right. So a hiatus from swimming occurred, but last year you relay swam the channel. Last year you traveled all over the world taking part in ice swimming competitions. This year you're preparing to swim the channel solo. So I think the best place to start is to give a big old middle finger to all the ice bath evangelists out there that think they're hard for sitting in it for three or so minutes. And then you're doing competitive distance related competitions in 5 degrees or cooler, aren't you? So how did you find that as a competitive pursuit? Because it's one thing to swim quickly in normal water or temperate water, shall we say. It's another thing to do it in 4 degrees Celsius.
Yeah, honestly, mate, it was very hard. I'll be honest, it was really hard. So I was one of those ice bath people that I just bought an ice bath and I thought, I'm hardcore, this is great. And I still appreciate just sitting in an ice bath, because for some people, it starts their day off really well. It's like mentally, you just feel good about yourself. You've got a little skip in your step. You're kind of on your high horse.
It's an easy win.
It's an easy win.
Yeah.
Because
it's an easy access point to a hard win.
Yeah. It's not easy when you're in there, but at the end of the day, once you do it enough, you realize it's not the hardest thing in the world. But if that helps you, which it does for me, and it did for me, like, that's absolutely great. So I love that. There's a massive difference between sitting in an ice bath for between 0 and 5 minutes or 5 and 10 minutes and swimming as fast as you possibly can in water that is just as cold, when you're physically moving through it, where the warmth within your internal organs is being sucked out by the cold. Your muscles are seizing up. It's a completely different ballgame. So I got shocked because I went to my first ice swimming competition, which is a regular swimming competition in water underneath 5 degrees. I had been training in the pool like 2 or 3 times, maybe at most. And I've been sitting in the ice bath for like 3 minutes thinking, I'm going to be fine. To then go in, having your full face submerged in the freezing cold, which you're an open water swimmer, your breath goes away, and it's absolutely horrible. And it's very difficult to get that under control and just control the stress levels of your body freaking out. At the same time, kicking your legs as hard as you can and spinning your arms as hard as you can. It was like really, really bad. So I got a big shock. First ice competition I did, I was thinking, all right, I need to start training differently. So then I had to start training in the cold, like properly swimming at pace in the cold. And it's like I don't know enough about it yet to understand exactly what happens physiologically in your body, but something to do with trying to circulate blood round to your muscles because you're using them, because you're racing. At the same time, your body knowing I need to keep you warm, and the races that I was doing, I think the longest I did was like a 250 meter race. So at the end of the day, you're not going to lose too much core temperature, but your body is first, it's fight or flight. It's like, right, we need to keep you warm. But at the same time, you're asking it to pump blood to your quads, and to your cat. Like it was just like the cold just got me, man. But it's such a new way to experience swimming for me, which is super exciting. And I think that it may become a really popular sport. I'm not sure. Will I do it again? Again, I'm not sure. But it was just, it was fusing swimming for competition and trying something completely new, like the ice, I think was really special. But also I think like the journey that I went on with that was so great for me, because I was doing a lot of my training through the winter, which, as we know already, is depressing and it's cold. I'm like, well, if it's going to be cold, I may as well just make the most of it.
Lean into
cold.
it,
Lean into it. So, I was forcing myself to go to the sea or to my lake or to just in the ice bath, like as regularly as I could. Just that, whether you're doing that for a reason or if that's just something you do, like that's great, because we all know the benefits of doing that mentally and physically. It's actually just good for you. So the fact that I was having to do that as part of my training, like through those cold winter months, made me have a really healthy time during that. And at the end of it, I got to go away and I do a race, which we all know I absolutely love doing. So I think that it took me on a really nice journey exploring ice swimming. It's blooming hard.
Wasn't there a competition? It was in Europe somewhere, wasn't it? Where you went, you travelled, you competed, you did well. Lots of people did well. But none of the records counted because it was like 5.1 degrees.
Yeah, so that was
a punch, the kick in the teeth. That is a stamping on the head.
It's a very new sport. They're still figuring out things because like a lot of the pools they use, they just let them get cold and they hope that they stay cold because water can change quite a lot. So from like the difference between like 3.5 degrees to like 5.5 degrees can happen in a day. You know, if there's a slight change in the weather over a weekend, that can change. So it has to be under 5. But the difference between swimming in 4.5 degree water and 1 degree water is like in our minds now, it's like, yeah, cold's cold, but there's proper cold, then there's pretty cold, and then there's cold. So you know, you want to get it right. So it will probably turn into the way that they're doing it, and they'll actually regulate the pool temperature. They'll have like the opposite of a heater, essentially. So keeping it cold, not freezing it over, but not keeping it too warm, because there's a lot. Yeah, like we did go there, and you know, it was getting warm every day, and we're like, oh no, is it going to get too warm for it to count, kind of thing. But it's a brand new sport. I've enjoyed kind of being a part of it. Whether I do it again, I don't know.
Yeah. Having had the sensation of feeling like somebody's sitting on my head whilst swimming with the cold. Yeah. I think the coldest I've been in is 4.5, and that was in a wetsuit. Yeah. But with my face exposed. Yeah. And just that gets the cold into you.
It does.
And it's just horrific. I think I managed 1.2K, and then I was like, fuck this, I'm done. Like I kind of eased into it, but I could just feel. There was a point where I felt everything just sort of cooling internally. I was like, this isn't nice.
And what I really liked about that as well is like, you know, you learned a little bit about your body then, like how you responded to the cold. Like sometimes I'll get out and I'll be like super dazed, and even just from an open water swim, I sometimes feel like that. But
it's dangerous, isn't it? Training for dangerous. It. Yeah.
So what I really enjoyed learning about was like how my body was coping with the cold. So going from sitting in an ice bath to swimming in the cold to like racing in the cold, like thinking about the nutrition and the state of your body before and after, and how you can regulate that, and like what is the best way for me to warm up, what's the best way for me to stay warm during my swim. And there's like a lot of it is to do with the nutrition and the fuel you're putting in your body, and just your body composition as well. So it was all like brand new to me, which I absolutely loved. And I am nowhere near an expert or anything when it comes to like ice swimming. I'm one of the few people that have maybe done it to a competitive element, but there's, you know, if I was to get good at it, I'd have to do it quite a few more seasons, because you have to just understand how your body reacts in the cold. It's very humbling, but it's something you can work on, something you can get quite good at, I think.
Did you do 100 meters? What was there? I
did 100 meters. I did it and there's weird rules. So you don't go from a dive, you go from a push. You can't go kicking underwater. You got to come straight up. Don't really know why. You can't do a tumble turn. You got to do a touch turn. So those little things would impact the time anyway, because you're not as fast. But at the time, I went like 55 seconds, and my best time in a pool was like 49. So it's like a 6-second difference. Okay. So
could you? What would you do in a pool now?
So I didn't actually. That's a good question, because just a few weeks after I did the 55 from a push in the cold, I went 52 from a dive. So it might not be that much difference.
Interesting.
Because that's like 3 seconds. But if you take in the fact that I had a dive in the pool and a tumble turn, and I was maybe in slightly better shape as well, I don't know if the cold really plays that much. Mentally, it does. And you feel like you can't feel the connection with the water doesn't feel the same. But if anything, it might just give you a kick up the ass, and you might swim a bit faster in the cold.
Interesting. Yeah. Well, we'll figure it out together on the internet, because I'm sure people are going to become fascinated with this as it develops. But a more long-standing component of swimming, the channel. Yeah. So relay last year, obviously I can imagine a very fun experience getting back to that sort of you and the boys, the school bus rocking up at somebody else's school, sort of middle fingers out the window sort of feeling that you had with the relay stuff. Talk us through that experience, and then more importantly, the lessons that you're going to take from that for your solo attempt this summer. Yeah,
so last year, channel relay with the boys, it was exactly that. It was with the boys, you know, it was amazing. So for me, there was 5 of us. I knew all of them from different parts of my life. 2 of them I swam with here in Edinburgh as a teenager. 2 of them I swam with at the University of Florida. and we went down to Dover for the week and we chilled out. We splashed in the sea. We went out for dinner and like we were staying in the hotel. And it was like, back in the school days or like back on training camp or whatever it was. It was that team element again, which I got a real taste of. So from that point of view, absolutely loved it. We were doing something for the first time. We were doing it for charity. We did a great job of that. So it had all these like lovely elements to it, which was really, really exciting. In the back of my mind, I knew like if you quite like this, you're probably going to fall into the trap of doing it again and making it harder for yourself, which I seem to have done. But yeah, I basically, we swam the Channel Relay last year in 10.5 hours with tough conditions. I then basically got essentially a phone call like that following week from someone that had a solo space. Because you got to kind of book in like windows years in advance. It's very hard to do. And they said, listen, would you want to do it solo in 8 weeks' time? And I said yes. And at the time, it was probably too short notice to actually, because swimming in the relay and swimming solo is very different. The relay, you do 1 hour increments individually. So I do an hour, you're on the boat, and then we rotate through the team like that. So I only end up doing 2.5 hours of swimming in the relay, whereas now in the solo, I'm going to have to end up doing the entire thing. So it's a completely different challenge. It was great to have the support of the boys in the boat. Now it's going to be a bit different. I'm going to be in the water on my own. We just spoke about kind of nutrition and fueling when you're getting cold in like the ice swimming. It's very, very important in the channel as well, in the solo attempts. Like that's probably the kind of the make or break for you. Like if you can continue to fuel your body correctly in the latter stage of the swim, if you're strong enough swimmer, you can get out well, you can get out fast, and you're not too knackered by halfway. It is then just a case of kind of holding pace and not trying to drop off. So physically, if you're fit enough, you shouldn't drop off. But like, fuel-wise, nutrition-wise, if you're starting to become depleted and cold, it's going to be really, really hard. So there's a lot I learned from doing it in the relay, which I'm going to carry over to the solo, but it is a completely different challenge.
Tide can turn at a certain point, can't it? Quite. Yeah. I mean, you're essentially trying to sort of break the back of it to a point where you don't get shafted and end up swimming for 6 more hours. Is kind of the game that you're playing here, isn't it? So
yeah,
I think we're all pretty confident you've got a decent amount of speed in the tank. But how have you adapted to that scale, that other end of the spectrum, endurance side of things in terms of mindset and training? Because I mean, 20 to 30 hours of training a week in the pools by no means a small feat, but if you take away those 30 seconds at the wall, if you take away those half an hour of mobility and getting in the zone beforehand, and if you're just moving, staring at darkness, how have you adapted to that? Yeah,
it's a totally different way of swimming, if I'm honest. And like when I would go for a 2-hour session, I was stopping every 4 lengths, or stopping every 8 lengths, whatever it was, to just continually swim, like physically on your shoulders, on your lats. Like I'll go for an open water swim now and I'll do like 3K without stopping. Like I'll really feel that. Whereas like 3K in the pool where I'm following like a session plan would be easy. I could walk through that. So just physically on your body, that is going to be, the channel itself is going to test me in a way I've never been tested physically, because it's just a continuous effort. Like I'm not an ultra endurance athlete. I was a middle distance sprint specialist in swimming. I now have had a little bit of experience, even not within swimming, but running and cycling, like kind of going for longer periods of time without any significant rest. So I've had a bit of experience with that now, and I do like it because you really have to dig deep in here, man. And you know this. I'm talking to the expert in this. Like you really have to just like remind yourself why you're doing it. Find ways to stay focused. Like I become quite obsessed with my technique in swimming. And I think that that's hopefully going to become an advantage to me. And I hear you speak about it as well. Like especially when you're trying to make sure you're not get injured or not fatiguing anyway, you're really thinking about like your cadence, your steps, whatever it is you're doing sport wise. So for swimming, like I understand when I connect with the water well, and I understand when I don't connect with the water well. So it's like every stroke, just trying to feel that pattern, that repetition, and become obsessed with it in a way. It's going to keep your mind off it, because sometimes if my mind wanders when I'm swimming, I'll become disorientated, I'll become defocused, I'll become demotivated, I'll maybe start to think about the cold a bit more. So it's trying to find ways to stay focused and stay in the moment. And it's very hard to do that for like 10 hours, and be like every stroke thinking about it. So it's just, it's going to be a tough one. I think that, I know that that's the way that I'll get through it. It's just really being so present in every stroke that I'm taking. And that's mentally quite draining, is to be able to, because I'm not going to be able to do that. There's going to be times where I think about, I'm starving. Like, I think about like a Big Mac or something, or, thinking about something to take your mind off it, but without getting too
frustrational spike. And then that'll start to spiral a bit.
And you go through those cycles. I think there's something I know that I'm not good at is when I'm feeling nutritionally depleted, like when I'm like hungry or need fuel. So having a really strong nutritional plan for when I'm in the water, which I have, working with a great coach who's taken hundreds of swimmers across, is having a really good plan around that so that I don't feel frustrated or don't feel like I'm really suffering in there. I'm fine with it being hard. I love hard. I've mentioned that before. I'm fine with my body starting to hurt and tire, and I can push through that. It's going to be things that just like the cold being really uncomfortable, maybe not knowing how far I've gone, because it's very hard to communicate. Like, I quite like to know how far I'm doing, maybe the pace that I'm going, but you don't want to give them too much. I don't want to be obsessed with like every 15 minutes getting a check-in. So yeah, it's just I think embracing the challenge is going to be like it's probably one of the words I'm going to think about, is just embrace it. So embrace the cold, embrace the uncomfortableness, embrace the unknown. So as much as I can prepare for that, it is going to be a lot of new on the day.
It's fascinating. I'm going to be really keen to hear a debrief, because I mean the furthest I swam one goes 12K. I swam locker and end to end.
Yeah.
And I was golden up until 8K.
Yeah.
And then I had a lap timer every 500 meters.
Yeah.
And they were all under 10. So I was like, okay, everything under 2 minutes per 100, spot on, great. And then I think it was 7.5 to 8K was 12 minutes 30. I was like, oh, GPS must be off.
Yeah.
And then the next one was 12:45. I was like, oh.
Yeah.
I was like, okay, right, one more. And I got to 9. I was like, oh, fucking hell, this is consistent now. This must actually be reality.
Yeah.
So I got on the boat just to get some food on. I was like, Johnny, do I look like I'm falling apart? Because I couldn't really feel that my technique was falling apart. And then once I got back in after having a bit of food, I kind of just felt sluggish. Everything felt a little bit, I felt less stable in the water. I felt like I was fighting to stay afloat a bit more.
Yeah.
And like you were saying, I wanted my mind to wander just so I could get into a rhythm and keep moving forwards. But if I let my mind wander at all, then I got even more splashy and flaily and slower.
Yeah.
And that was then feeding the frustration. So I was in this really weird place for the next 2.5K.
Yeah.
Where I was just really trying to stay focused and calm. But what was interesting was it was like that. It was you're good, you're smooth, same pace, it's gone.
Yeah.
So it's if you get to that point in the channel, is how long can you tolerate that bullshit for?
Yeah.
Is kind of the and that's what I'll be really excited to hear about, because I want to swim the channel at some point. I'd love to swim the Irish Channel as well.
Yeah. I think that.
So it's just that it's death by 1,000 cuts rather than getting punched square in the face really hard, I guess.
Yeah. It is that. And I think that there's what's nice about the channel. And my mindset going into it, and it has to be this, and everybody I've spoken about, even before the relay, was like, you need to go in, you can't have like a result in mind. You can't have a time in mind, because what's very unique about the channel, as you said, is tides come into it, currents, weather. There's so much that can impact how fast you're going to go. Like, you can have a great personal performance, like your body, you can cope with it super well, but you might have a slightly stronger tide that day than you wanted, and you're going to end up going, because you're swimming kind of like a bell curve. You go with the tide on the way out, and then as you come into France, the tide pushes you in if you time it well. That tide can be bigger, that tide can be smaller, depending on the day, depending on whatever. So you have to have, I don't have a time in my head. I have a ballpark, like if I have a good tide, I can probably go this. So what's quite nice about that is like, your pacing and your splits hopefully won't impact you, because you're aware that like a lot of that's out of your control.
Yeah.
Whereas like if I go for a run, and I guess what happened in your lock earn swim is, you realize that, oh, maybe I'm off there, and it just triggers you, and you totally lose it. Whereas in the channel, like, I'm not really, I probably won't be told too much of my actual times, but I might be told like how far I have to go, or how long I've been in. So like using that as my reference points, and not being like, oh, I was off by, my split was off slightly there, because I could have had bigger waves on that point. I could have had, I swam through jellyfish or something like that. There's a lot you can't control, which is quite nice. Whereas like, if I go for a run, I'm very bad for it. every kilometer I need to be checking, and I'm in a way I can see the positives for that, and I can see the negatives.
There's a time and a place for both, isn't there?
Definitely, and it's understanding how to use the data and how to use the technology. So for me, like, my focus is going to be on my technique, on my stroke, because I know how that should feel because I've done a million strokes before. So that is going to be my reference point. If I'm feeling my strokes off, all right, refocus for a second, try and stay longer, try and connect better with the water. That's going to be the way that I'm able to stay into what I'm doing and not be like, oh, my split was off there. It's going to throw me. I'm either going to be, oh, I'm flying, or I'm not doing well. So I'm going to try not to use that kind of drive.
Are you going to have any data?
No, I don't think so. I don't think I will. I think we'll just we'll have.
Yeah.
No, I won't have. I don't swim with a watch, so I'm thinking it will probably. I know people that have got like bad shoulder injuries from wearing a watch from the first time on like a long swim because it's a slightly different weight. So I'm gonna just try, and there's gonna be guys in the boat that are getting my times and splits, and
two watches.
Yeah, exactly. We have to double up, but I've not really experimented with that before, so I'm probably gonna go no watch. But there'll be a watch in the boat that's essentially going the same route as me, so we'll get a very accurate time. But there'll be messages that people will put up on a whiteboard, say like maybe the message from home, or saying you're doing well, or like, do you need another feed? So there'll be communication there. But for me, I'm just going to try and stay in the natural moment.
It's going to be an adventure. I think what you said there, the metrics is why I found myself more drawn to extreme triathlons rather than Ironman branded triathlons, because I've really enjoyed the sort of metric focused triathlon training I've done in the past.
Yep.
But I've definitely found myself more aligned with you're in a harsh environment, you're going on an adventure from A to B side of things more than, how much more? The thought of going to Patagonia and doing a triathlon there is way more exciting to me than going sub 10 on a 100%. Fast and flat course, which is different for some people, but I think that's why the channel for bucket list things like the channel, Land's End, John O'Groats, all these things where you're doing something a bit more tangible. Yeah. That feels really exciting to me in the long term. So it's cool to know that you've got that contentment that you took from drawing a line into your swimming career, and you can look at that. You can look through the same lens with this, where you just accept the variables are what the variables are. Yeah. I'll do the best that I can on the day, and whatever will be, will be.
It's like I would much rather spend 2 hours up the Pentlands than I would 2 hours running around the track or running on a really controlled, because there's the elevation, the wind, whatever it is, like there's a lot more out of your control, because you can get very obsessed with your cadence and your times. And I love going to like the track, for example, and being super specific on the data and the input that I'm putting in, but I also like going for like a 2 hour trail run around the Pentlands, and it just being, I put it on Strava, but it's just out of curiosity to see how long it took. Maybe I don't care how fast I go or anything like that. So I think that the channel, is going to allow me to perform to my best ability, but it being in a very uncontrollable environment, and just seeing how the two go together.
So you spoke about fulfillment that you found after a few years of enjoying civilian non-swimming life, and you are now back in the world of swimming in a professional setting, career, business, training.
Yeah.
You're a swimmer again, mate, full time.
I think that's the thing. I think that as much as I hated it at one point, I'm always going to be a swimmer, right? I'm always going to be a swimmer. 10-year-old me made that decision, and there's no way of escaping it. I'm a lot of other things, but as far as passion and experience and knowledge and opportunity, like swimming is always going to be there for me. So yes, I'm getting back in it myself physically. I'm getting back in it business-wise now, which is like really exciting. So if I can find different ways to do that, it's like I'm finding different ways to physically swim. I'm doing the channel, I'm doing ice stuff, I'm doing it from enjoyment. So that's all new. Business-wise, I'm finding out new ways where I can like pass on my understanding of swimming and help people that are struggling with it in different ways that I've previously in the past done as well. So I feel really fulfilled again in I'm doing the right thing. And there's a lot of stuff that's still early days, especially business-wise. But, I feel every day that I'm doing the right thing. And I think that's really special, because when we spoke about like my transition period from sport into the next career, like I never really felt like I was doing the right thing. I knew that I was exploring opportunities and exploring avenues, but now
all stepping stones, aren't they, as well?
All stepping stones, 100%. So now for the first time, I'm like, this is what I should be doing, and you're doing a good job of it, so keep going.
So Swimmr is what the business is called.
Yeah.
What is the mission?
Yeah. So for me, the mission is to is to give people a better understanding of how to swim, how to swim well, and whatever goal they have in mind, they can use Swimmr for that. So if you've never been given the correct advice on how to swim front crawl, or on the other side of things, if you want to, smash your first 70.3 Ironman, like Swimmr is there for you. So for me, it's bridging that gap between not being able to help someone because they're not sat in front of me and wanting to help them. So I've had so many messages over the years about, hey Dan, like, can you help me with my swimming? And I'd be like, absolutely, like, where are you? Thinking they're going to say Edinburgh, and they're like, I'm in Cheshire or something. And I'm like, it's really hard for me to help you there. So, myself and my old teammate Connor, we started Swimmr, which is essentially an online swimming platform, focus a lot on the technical side of it. Because for me, I've spent so many hours in the pool. I know that the biggest improvements, those quick wins, those, I feel really great, can come from a technical improvement, not a physical training, like, putting in the hours. If I can help someone with their technique and make them a more able and confident swimmer, they can then apply that into whatever training they're doing, whether they're just looking to get a bit fitter or whether they're looking to take on some competitions, whether it's a pool competition, a triathlon competition. If I can help them with their technique and give them a better understanding of what they should be focusing on, how things should feel, then I'm just opening the doors for them. So that is really what it is to just help people on their swimming journey, no matter where it is and no matter where they are in the world as well, which is really special.
Which will be a big thing to take on because, as we were laughing beforehand, it's very difficult to film anything or get any visual feedback from people in pools. Yeah.
There's going to be challenges.
But where is the best place for people to find you and more about Swimmr?
Swimmr.com. So it's Swimmr without the E. Swimmr.com. You kind of got everything on there about kind of what we're doing and what we have available now. But also if you follow Swimmr HQ on Instagram, we've got our great kind of community that we're building there, giving you just daily tips and giving you the opportunity to let us know what you want to learn about and kind of helping you along the way.
Fantastic. Well, thank you very much. Enjoyed that as always, and all the best with the mission.
Perfect. Cheers, man. Thank you.